Last night's win over Seattle was my favorite win of the season.
Hey, this is Brain Schenn. Subscribe to Lock On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I'm going to talk to you about the 7-2 win over the Seattle Kraken. It was my favorite win of the season, by the way. And I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I have never been more excited about a Blues win. I'm going to also talk to you about looking ahead to the Capitals' big game tomorrow night for a special player. And then the playoffs are a possibility. I know we've gone back and forth and we've talked playoffs, no playoffs, what's going on, what's not going on. I'm going to be honest with you. I am going to be oddly optimistic just because I cannot count this team out. I know I've talked about it all week. And I said it really depends on how the Blues do against the Seattle Kraken. Obviously, they had a dominant 7-2 win over Seattle. And that to me just kind of gives me that reassurance of, wow, they gained 5 out of 6 points in this homestand. So we have a busy episode to talk to today. And let's get right into it. So last night, the Blues, as I said, had my favorite win of the season with a 7-2 win over Seattle. The reason why this was my favorite win, it wasn't necessarily because it was 7 goals scored by the Blues. It was because who scored the goals. And I was really happy for Sonny. He scored. And I'm going to talk about, what happened and break down the game. But Zach Bolduc had 2 goals. The reason why this was important for me, and again, like I know you're not on the team, I know, is that he's had a tough season. He's somebody who I've talked about a lot on this podcast and I've been disappointed in. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I'm not going to lie to you and say that he's had a great season because he hasn't. Getting the 2 goals last night gave him now 8 goals on the season, which is not great. But I do think this was much needed for him. It's interesting to see how some teams respond after having this break. Some teams have been really dominant, and then some teams have been flat. For the Blues, though, I feel like last night's win just showed me complete dominance. I was having the time of my life watching this team play hockey. This team excites me. And this team looked fast and speedy last night. And I know Seattle is not the best hockey team, but what did I say in the preview episode of the game? I said this is where it's kind of like a trap game for the Blues. And sometimes games like this, where you're going against an opponent that isn't as good, actually showcases the worst that the Blues have because they don't play as competitive. And that to me bothers me. But in last night's game, I didn't see that. I saw complete and utter dominance. One thing that I noticed, and I've been calling this out quite a bit, is the faceoffs. And I was looking up the statistics because last night, again, it looked like the Blues were winning almost every single faceoff. And they won 66% of the faceoffs in last night's contest. This is one of the strongest assets of the St. Louis Blues team. Brayden Schenn plays a huge role in this one with the faceoffs. But I just saw a team that looked fired up and looked motivated. Now, I'm going to go over the game last night, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts. But I always like to break it down for you because I know I like to have that little bit of a recap. So in the first frame, Jordan Kyrou started off the scoring, and he was assisted by Cam Fowler and Parayko. Why this is important, I will mention it as we continue on. Oscar Sundqvist scores a power play goal. It was his 5th of the season. Super happy for Sonny, assisted by Bushi and Robert Thomas. And then in the second period, Robert Thomas scores his 16th goal of this season. 7-game point streak now for Robert Thomas, and he was assisted by Jake Neighbors and Philip Broberg. 3-0 now Blues. About a couple minutes later, Zach Bolduc scores his first goal of the game, making it 4-0. Then, like a minute later, Cam Fowler scores a goal, getting his 7th of the season, assisted by Holloway with his 25th assist of the season, and captain Brayden Schenn. Finally, A little bit past the midway point of the game, Jake Neighbors makes it 6-0, assisted by Cam Fowler and Colton Parayko. Finally, about 20 seconds into the final frame, right off the faceoff, Zach Bolduc is able to capitalize and score the Blues' 7th goal of the game, assisted by Matthew Joseph and Oscar Sundqvist. Big night for Sonny. Then Vince Dunn scores for Seattle. 5 minutes into the third, and he makes sure that shutout does not happen. And then Jaden Schwartz is able to score the 2nd goal for the Seattle Kraken. And listen, I was really hoping for a shutout, and I love Jaden. I love what he's done here in St. Louis. I do. And I'm not going to deny that by any means, right? But I was like, come on, man. You couldn't even let us have, just the one. And then I know we had the great Vince Dunn who played here. So it is funny that 2 of our former players scored on us, but that's just how it goes sometimes. But it was a little ironic to me, at least. I was like, oh, of course it was Vince. Of course it was Jaden. But overall, it was such a great game by the Blues, and I could not be more impressed, could not be more pleased and happy with the final result. Both teams did have 27 shots on goal. Both teams both had 18 hits, and both teams both had 4 penalty minutes, so that was pretty much even. The only thing that wasn't even was the scoring. And the Blues so far this season have won 2 out of 3 of the games. They're going to be playing the final games against the Kraken April 12th. So just be on the lookout for that so they could sweep Seattle. Last night, though, most impressively, Zach Bolduc had 2 goals. Oscar Sundqvist had 1 goal and 2 assists. And Cam Fowler had 1 goal and 2 assists. As I said, it was a great night for the Blues last night. And I feel like this is something where they need to continue to have this momentum. I just can't get over the fact that I have watched this team play such a dominant game. A game where I truly do feel like this was their best game of the season. They were so dominant. And this is what they need to bring with them all the time. I feel like sometimes when the Blues play, it gets a little bit lost in translation, and we don't always see the Blues, doing what they need to do, right? We don't really see, you know what it is? And it's not a negative, but I feel like the Blues are their own worst enemy because they have the talent, and it was on full display last night. And the thing that I really liked about last night's game was we saw some of the defensemen play more offensively, and that's where guys like a Cam Fowler, a Philip Broberg really do step up, is because they are more offensive minded. And if you're just going to play defensively and that's it, you're not going to really strive in a sense. And I feel like that's where the Blues really need to focus their emphasis on, is just playing more of an offensive type of game from the defense perspective. But I want your opinion because I am curious, because you could say some of the other games could have been their best games of the season. I don't know what you classify as the best games of the season, but what I can say is that for me last night, I just really enjoyed what I saw on the ice. And I feel like now we're getting closer to that trade deadline, so maybe more eyes are on the Blues. I'm not sure yet. But I do feel like, though, this is a team that has so much potential and a team that makes me very excited. And here's the thing. Robert Thomas has 4 goals and 7 assists during a 7-game point streak, as I mentioned. Jake Neighbors, he actually snapped a 10-game scoring drought. Binnington saved 26 shots on goal last night to improve to 4-0-1 in his last 5 games. What this says to me is that there is a lot of positive. Matthew Joseph played his 400th career game last night and got an assist. So I do feel like this was good for Joseph. He was benched during Sunday's win over Colorado, so I was happy to see him back on the ice. But there is a game tomorrow night. A big game tomorrow night, as it is the Blues in Washington. But there's something a little bit more special, and it's not just Ovechkin trying to get that record. And I'll explain to you what exactly I mean. But first, I want to talk to you about my friends over at Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed Sponsored Job puts your post at the top of the page, and they help you reach the right candidates faster. One thing that I love about Indeed is that sometimes when I need a candidate fast, I can just go to Indeed.com and I'm able to post my job that I need to be filled. And Indeed does all of the work and they make sure that the right people see my post. So now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. The Blues have a big game tomorrow night against the Washington Capitals. And I know what you're thinking. Hale, is this going to be the Ovechkin show? Well, I hope not, because it should be the Brayden Schenn show. So the Washington Capitals are obviously one of those teams that everybody is kind of keeping their eyes on right now, right? You have the whole, Ovechkin trying to chase the great one. Like, I get what's going on. But I do feel like the St. Louis Blues have the potential, have the possibility to have an outstanding game. There's a reason why I think that. And there's a multitude of reasons why I think that. And it's because of this. Right now, as I said, it's the countdown for Ovechkin. He's now just 13 goals shy of passing Wayne Gretzky's all-time goals record after his Hattie on Sunday against Edmonton. Thank you for beating Edmonton. But here's the thing. I really do believe that Brayden Schenn should be the star in tomorrow's game because our captain, Brayden Schenn, will be hitting 1,000 NHL games. I know what you're thinking. Wow. What a milestone. And now it's going to be overshadowed by Ovechkin. I get it. I have watched Brayden Schenn play from his first season being with the Philadelphia Flyers to then going to the Blues. I spoke to Eric Johnson yesterday. I know, what a throwback name, about Brayden Schenn. And they're friends. And I'm going to play on tomorrow's episode the audio that Eric Johnson told me about his friendship with Brayden Schenn and his thoughts and feelings about Schenn hitting this milestone as Eric Johnson hit this milestone this season himself. I really hope in tomorrow's game it isn't just the Ovechkin show. So I'm hoping he doesn't score because I want this to be about Schenn. And I want the team to step up and play for him. Sometimes I get a little bit frustrated in a sense that Shenn's going to have his 1,000th game on the road. And I know that, things don't always pan out to play your game at home. And I get that. But it would have been nice to have that milestone here in St. Louis. But at the end of the day, I can't really be too upset about what's going on. But I do think, though, I think that this will be a very competitive game. I do. I think that the Blues are kind of on a hot streak right now. And I think that there's just kind of that sense of, I don't know how to explain it, but just kind of a sense of both competitiveness. And again, I am happy that Ovechkin's going to probably hit the goal. Good for him, right? That's not easy to do. I just think that this, again, is something where I really hope it's not overshadowed. But again, it is what it is. But anyways, the Blues have earned a point in their last 4 games, making their record 3-0-1 with 7 out of 8 points in that span. 13 skaters picked up points and from the last game, which shows me that this team is just puck hungry, goal hungry, and it's a 1-game trip. Not a huge fan of that. Final time this season, right? Heading up to Washington, but I do feel like this could be something where the Blues just come out of this game with complete dominance. The Capitals, by the way, are 38-12-8 coming into Thursday's game. They have been a really good team. They were actually the winningest team in the Eastern Conference and one of the top teams in the NHL this season. However, the team did lose to the Flames 3-1 on Tuesday. Of course, that one lone goal belonged to Ovechkin on that loss on Tuesday. In his last 5 games, Ovechkin has put up 8 points with 5 goals and 3 assists. As I mentioned, that hat trick. And he is chasing the Great Ones record of 894 goals. He's right now at 883 goals. The Capitals, they are a really strong team offensively, leading the league with 212 goals. And per game average, they had put up about 3.5 goals. So the last time that these two teams met was in the beginning of November. I know it feels like forever ago. On November 9th. How much life has changed? No, literally, my life has changed a lot since then. The Capitals have posted 28, 8-8. I know it's only 8 losses during that time. However, I do feel like right now the Blues just really need to come out of this game with complete dominance, and that's all there is to it. I understand the fact that, right now these two teams are maybe a little bit different, right? You have a team that is trying to go to the playoffs with the Capitals, and then you have a team like the Blues who are hoping for a playoff chance. I don't necessarily think that one of these teams will make it to the playoffs. I hope that the Blues do, but I can't tell you that they will. Anyways, tomorrow's game, definitely keep your eyes on Captain Braden Schenn. Schenner's going to hit his 1,000th game. Obviously, with the Capitals, Ovechkin, he's doing something very historic right now to break this record. I mean, nobody else is going to come close to this. Not even Crosby or anything like that. It's crazy. Ovi was drafted in 2004 by the Capitals. And, he's won a cup, but later in his career, I believe it was the year after us. But, what a career he's had. And, it's certain players you can't really hate. I am obviously a little bit protective of Ovechkin because he was our captain for like 18 games. But at the end of the day, I also love the idea that he could break this record. I don't know. It's weird because it's kind of like, not like I'm conflicted, but it's definitely like a little bit of mixed feelings because it's like, oh, wow, Ovi's not going to go down in the history. He's going to go down in the history books regardless, but I don't know. Just an interesting situation, right? When you're not like really favoriting a player. Jordan Binnington, by the way, stopped 25 of the 27 shots he faced against the Kraken, earning his 17th victory of the season and his 3rd straight win. And Binner has been absolutely phenomenal. Cam Fowler has recorded 3 points, 1 goal, 2 assists on Tuesday. And it's his 2nd 3-point game as a Blue. He has 5 points in the last 4 games with 2 goals and 3 assists. Robert Thomas has a 7-game point streak, as I did mention. And with the Blues' next win, Dougie A will match Emile Francis for 9th all-time with 839 wins. So a big game tomorrow. I want to remind you all to subscribe to Locked On Blues, whether that is here on YouTube, whether that is on Twitter at Locked On Blues, or any podcasting app that you use. I know I have my Spotifyers, I have my Apple Musicers, I have my SoundClouders. Wherever you listen to your podcast, to subscribe to LOB, Locked On Blues. I've been calling this podcast LOB a lot lately. I'm like, I have to film Locked On Blues, little nickname for the potty. But I really do appreciate my everydayers, and we're going to have a lot of fun. I know the trade deadline is looming. It's coming sooner than we think. I know for me personally, because I think February is such a weird month. I want to always say, yeah, it goes up to 30 days, 31. Nope, that is a 29-day month. So for me, I know the trade deadline is under 9 days now. So it's definitely coming sooner than later. And there is the possibility of maybe a Blues player being traded. I don't know. Like, this is the thing. The insiders are not really giving much with the Blues, so there could be nothing that they do, which I'd be fine with at the same time as well. I don't really have any feelings anymore. I think at first I was having a lot of feelings about what the Blues should do, and now I'm kind of like, neutral. So let's go talk more about playoff possibility in the trade deadline. Kind of going off of what I was just saying, I saw so many posts, right, saying Binnington's going to be traded, this guy's going to be traded, blah, blah, blah. I don't necessarily think any of those players are going to be traded. I think that maybe the Blues should look to maybe get a younger player, but I don't necessarily think that it's going to change the outcome of the season. I think that right now, it doesn't make the same sense to trade Binnington as it does to trade Brayden Schenn. And that's the one name that I saw a lot from the national media, by the way, was reuniting Brayden Schenn and Luke Schenn. And I want to remind you all that they did play together in Philadelphia. It's not like they didn't play together. I think with the Tkachuks, there's kind of like that fixation around, oh, having brothers play together. And I think that's awesome. And I want Matthew and Brady to play together here in St. Louis. I just don't think it would make any sense to trade Captain Brayden Schenn to Nashville or to trade Luke Schenn to St. Louis. It just wouldn't make any sense to me. I think that the Blues are in a situation, honestly, where they're in a position where they're not good enough right now to be a playoff contender. I mean, they're a contender, right? Like, you can't count them out yet. But you can't also look at the Blues and say, oh, yeah, this team is a playoff team. You can't do that. And that would be completely delusional. And now with another 2 points added, I have to take a look at this Blues team. They have 60 points right now. The Calgary Flames sit at 64, and that's the second wild card in the West. Above the Blues of 61 is Utah, and above Utah with 63 points is Vancouver. So if the Blues do gain the 2 points tomorrow, by the way, against Washington, they would be at 62 points, which means that they would then be above Utah. And then you never know what can happen. So it's not like the Blues are out yet. Like, there's some teams, right, that you just know are out completely. Like, the Buffalo Sabres have 53 points. The Blue Jackets have 64. They're not catching up. Or even if you look at the San Jose Sharks with 38 points, I'm surprised that they're not eliminated yet. Eliminations will happen soon, by the way. But yeah, San Jose has 38 points. Flames obviously have 64. Isn't it interesting that both teams have 64 in the second wildcard spot? Interesting. But eliminations, I feel like, will be taking place soon. But if the Blues continue to, put up points and you just hope everybody else loses, it is possible. You never can say never, but I feel like this is giving middle of the pack team, which is what we didn't want heading into the season, which we talked about numerous times. So for me, I feel like it's the same old story. The good old St. Louis Blues doing exactly what we predicted them to do, finishing as a middle team per usual. I'm not surprised. I just would rather this team do really poorly for a good draft pick or make it to the playoffs without having me stressed out until game 82 out of 82 of the season. So I will talk to you all tomorrow. It'll be a very special episode commemorating the career Brayden Schenn has had so far. Exclusive audio from Eric Johnson, former first overall draft pick. And just even my conversations with Brayden Schenn, there's going to be a lot of exclusive audio. So make sure to subscribe to Locked On Blues because you will only get this content here on Locked On Blues. I will talk to you all tomorrow. And like always, let's go Blues.